Okay, I'm going to do a video today on broadhead selection and some of the things that the bow hunter should probably think about before he goes out and picks out these broadheads. I've bow hunted for many years now, and over these years I have used many different kinds of broadheads. And I've learned that some broadheads do work better than others. And today I want to kind of go over a few of my thoughts and just share some information and some certain things that I've learned about broadheads. And it'll give you guys something to think about, as far as the broadheads that you want to use. Broadheads come in two different types. You have the fixed blade and you have the mechanicals. Nowadays I use mechanical broadheads because I can practice with my field tips and just go straight to the broadhead, and I don't have to worry about any change in my sights. And for me, that's a big plus. Though hunting certain different types of game and different situations, sometimes a fixed blade is necessary. I recommend that if you're not pulling at least 60 pounds of pull on your bow, I'd stay with a fixed blade. The reason why I say that is because mechanical blades do use kinetic energy. And kinetic energy is energy that is lost in motion. The word kinetic breaks down to in motion or movement. So, that is lost as the blades in a mechanical broadhead deploy. So, like I said, if you're not shooting probably 60 pounds or more, I recommend staying with a fixed blade broadhead. Now, fixed blades have a tendency not to fly as accurate as the mechanicals, and that's something that you have to account for if you decide to shoot a fixed blade. And the fixed blade broadheads don't have as large of a cutting diameter as the mechanicals. Generally speaking, when you shoot a fixed blade broadhead, you're not going to find one unless you get those great big ones for like going bear hunting or something. Over probably 1.25 inches is the maximum. Most of them are 1 inch or just slightly over 1 inch, 1 1/8 maybe. So, that is one reason why I have chosen to use mechanicals, because I like a broadhead that will cut a large hole, because the larger the hole, the more blood is going to be squirting out of it. Now, years ago I had a friend that had an archery shop, and I was in there and I was looking at these little broadheads here, and they are really sharp. And I was talking to him about them, and he was telling me that was what he used. And I was telling him, I said, man, those look awful small, and he told me that if you're a good shot and you place the arrow where you should, that this broadhead will get the job done. And that is rightfully so, what he said. But many times you don't get a perfect shot, and I bought 2 packs of these, and I tried them, and I shot 2 deer with these broadheads, and I didn't get either one of them. And I believe that this cutting diameter on this broadhead is only like 5/8 inch. So I recommend, personally, from my past experiences, don't use a little broadhead like this, because deer are big animals. It's big game. And this type of broadhead here, to me, after taking it out in the field and using it's more like for going coon hunting or something. It just doesn't have enough cutting diameter to it, and you know, it just doesn't have what it takes to bring down a larger animal. So my recommendation, don't use small broadheads. You know, you have here is a thunderhead broadhead, and I used to use those years ago, and it's in the 3-bladed, and this is 125 grain broadhead here. And you know, I had luck with these were okay, but they seem to lack some killing power. You know, a lot of the deer that I shot with these, I had to look a while before I could find them. Now, you know, some of the shots were really good too, so you know, once again, this is a broadhead with probably 1.25 inch cutting diameter on it, and that's pretty big actually for a fixed blade. And you know, that's one of the reasons why I just switched and went to mechanicals, because fixed blades just don't have enough cutting surface on them to bring down a deer quickly. I'm not, all of these broadheads will kill a deer, but I don't like having to chase deer for long distances. I like to be able to shoot my deer and sit in my stand for 30 minutes and go down and get it. You know, this stuff of chasing deer around the country is, I don't like that. So anyway, that's a little insight there that I have on the fixed blades. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the mechanicals. You know, years ago I had bought some of these 3-bladed Rage, and you know, the big thing on those is the blades deployed from the rear instead of fold back like the traditional mechanicals. And I tell you what, I used these one year for hunting, and the first deer I shot with this, one blade didn't deploy, and one of the other blades was just bent up so bad that it, you know, I had to basically scrap the broadhead, because I wasn't going to go out and buy any more blades. And I've shot several deer with these Rage broadheads, and I don't know what the Rage is about them, but I'm not that big on them myself. The blades are very thin, they bend. I'm afraid that they'll actually break, because if you look at the holes that are inside this blade design, there's very little steel that actually holds that blade together. They break, and you can be field dressing your deer, and you can get caught on a piece of these the blades and cut your hand. I talked to a gentleman that had to happen to, and it didn't turn out too good for him. I mean, it was a pretty good cut on his hand. And so after 1 year of using Rage broadheads, I was ready to move on. So, I mean, I'm not going to try to badmouth anybody, but I'm just trying to give you guys some honest information on products that I used. Okay, now, here's another broadhead that I've used, and I used it, and you know, I've shot some deer with it, and I wasn't real big on it because I had to look for them for quite a bit. I think this is made by Monotech, I think. I'm not certain. I can't remember for sure, but it has 2 cutting blades primarily. And if you look at that, they're not very big. The diameter is not that large. And you know, they got a really nice point. The tip on them is really nice. But once again, this is a broadhead that doesn't do sufficient damage to bring down a big animal without it running for quite some distance. It will kill a deer. I've killed deer with this. But like I said, every deer that I shot with this, the blood trail wasn't that good, and I had to look really hard to find it, and I had to look quite a ways before I found it. So I keep saying that the best broadhead is a broadhead that has adequate cutting power, and a broadhead that cuts a good size diameter. And I've been using these wasp jackhammers, and they've been doing a good job for me. I did a review on these, and you know, I shoot deer with these things, and I don't have to go very far to find them. And you know, this type of broadhead here does lose kinetic energy. But what I have noticed about these broadheads that of this type, though they lose kinetic energy, that kinetic energy is transferred into the target. Man, I've shot deer with these, the type that open, you know, from the top and go back, and you know, you can just see the deer, man, they feel that, and I'm telling you that regardless of what brand of a broadhead that you use, these cut a 1 3/4 inch hole, and I believe that a 1 3/4 inch hole, no less than 1.5, but 1 3/4 inch or larger is the best deal for shooting deer. Because and that's if you're shooting over 60 pounds. You know, you can't, if you're shooting 50 pounds, I recommend that you use a fixed blade. But if you're shooting 60 and over, mechanical broadheads, in my personal opinion, is the way to go. So, you know, I want to share this information with you guys. And this is just information that I've learned out in the field by actually using these different broadheads. From time to time, I will use a different broadhead just to test them. And you know, I've been kind of sticking with my jackhammers for several years now, because I just haven't found anything yet on the market that is any better. So take this information that I'm sharing with you on these broadheads, and you know, when you go to the store and you decide, you know, what's going to work best for you, you know, look at the broadhead, examine the broadhead, check how much cutting, actual cutting surface, and how many blades. To me, 2 blades like this, it's not enough. I am a big believer in 3 blades or more for deer hunting or hunting any type of large game. So anyway, think about this video that I've done, and you know, I hope it'll help you guys out on your selection, and I hope it will increase your ability to kill deer and not have to chase all over the country to find them. So anyway, until my next video, I'll see you guys later.